Well, what is this? Institute for Inclusion? Huh. Morgan Stanley. Morgan Stanley brings our employees, communities, and clients together in a shared commitment to creating a more equitable society. You notice something about this picture? No white people. Then white erase. You're going to compete with these financial institutions, these financial investment institutions. You're going to compete with them. You're going to go march in the street. You're going to go badmouth this or that non-white group. You're going to compete with them. Really, I have built the keys to this prison, and the dummies are still like, no, we're going to do it our way, the way it's always been done. I just hope that the cannibals find you first. All of you out there who have seen the Go Free practice and have decided, no, you want to stick with, so you want to LARP about something. I hope the cannibals find you motherfuckers first, okay? I hope you're the ones that get chewed up. I hope it's your family, because I don't deserve it. I and the good people here don't deserve it. Our Institute for Inclusion supports those efforts with investments. Oh, in underserved, which means non-white. That's a mean pathogen for Jason's mean pathogen. It's so cringe. Why? Nobody will ever say that. I guarantee you that if an academic peacock like Camus, Camus, if he said it, all of you dipshits out there would be repeating it. Our Institute for Inclusion supports those efforts with investments in underserved communities through products, services, data, and insights, philanthropic efforts to help promote equity. Now, remember, we talk about equity equity really started in a pronounced way in education and in educational environments, both, I should say, in various ways: enrollment, grades, pass rates, all of these ways that you could be measured in an academic environment and be enrolled, matriculated in an academic environment. And they said, we need equity. So they tried various ways, the anti-whites, and they kept trying and they keep trying. And they have absolutely surfeited the highest of learning institutions across Western civilization with people who were judged on the basis of not being white males. And so they were allowed into these institutions. Sure, there are going to be some people who deserve to be there who are non-white or female, but the vast majority are not. The evidence is all there. We see it everywhere as they drop standards. Another way that they make sure that everybody ends up with the same grades, right? The other problem in educational institutions was punishment, because you had groups like blacks and Hispanics and Arabs that for some reason were getting punished more than some of the other groups, at least according to some of the data. Check it out for yourself, okay? Check it out for yourself. And so they said, well, we can't have this. We can't have this. So they started changing. They came up with these neat little meme pathogenic concepts and programs, like severing the pipeline from education to prison. Remember all of that? Yeah, of course you do. And then the reason you remember it is because you repeated it, right? You said it over and over because you were being led around by the nose by these anti-white psychological warfare operators, not the people here, of course, the good men and women of white well-being, white positivity, Western kind, the only people who don't deserve to have the horrors inflicted on them, like cannibalism, mass gang rapes, and in the state refusing to do anything about it, and your entire country being given away to people from elsewhere around the world. We don't deserve it, but you do. So equity. So how did they dealt with it? They said, well, there's going to have to be more toleration of these particular groups who seem to be misbehaving a little bit more than the others, and of their bad behavior, and so therefore not punishing them. And then when it comes to the other group, like the white group, who were behaving weren't misbehaving as much, well, we're just going to have to be stricter with them and make sure we get some more suspensions in there. We got to bring up their suspension rates. So equity, no white education, no white person can have better grades than the dumbest non-white person. Equity in punishment at educational institutions, no white person can be punished less than the most punished non-white person. Equity in healthcare. No white person can be healthier than the sickest non-white person. And we've seen now it's making its way. What is equity? It's a meme pathogen, an anti-whiteism, an anti-white concept targeting white males and peripherally white females as well, increasingly, and we're happy about that, so that white females can continue to participate in anti-whiteism, which they have just loved doing over the decades, over the generations, a great many of them. They've just absolutely loved doing it. So we've seen it make its way into the pharmacies now. We've seen it make its way into, there was an article just recently, it's a big scandal that they went through when it comes to transplanting organs and who gets what organs. And the different races have, and check it out for yourself, different markers for what is acceptable and what is unacceptable. And when it comes to, I don't know whether it was kidneys or livers or whatever it was, they took away the racial component out of it, and now you have black people, and that was the objective. It wasn't an accident. They knew what they were doing. Black people who are higher on the list for these organs, who are not yet sick, who are not yet getting ill from their organ going bad, and white people who are nigh death, lower on the organ transplant list as a consequence. Check it out for yourself. See if I'm not, I know I'm 100% right. Check it out for yourself. That is equity in healthcare. Equity in economy. What does equity in economy mean? Here we're talking about anti-whiteism. It means that no white person can be wealthier than the poorest non-white person. And you know what's really fucking amazing and drives me insane with rage is that I was in junior high school when I first articulated that. And all through high school, in arguments with teachers in high school, I said, they're not going to be happy. There were already non-white millionaires everywhere, and they were still complaining about non-white people not being as rich as white people. They were richer than me. They were richer than all my white buddies, all my poor white buddies. They were everywhere. You saw that. So it was easy for me to put together at 11 and 12 and 13 years of age. Sorry if it wasn't quite as easy for you. Okay. Easy for me to put together that, wait a second, it's white people having anything, white people having any money, white people having any wealth, that is the problem for these people. Sure as shit. Here we are, decades later in my life of trying to fight this and being rejected by an absolutely tarded population who wants to continue doing things that are as asinine, backward, and stupid as you can possibly imagine. And here we go. Hundreds of millions of dollars from this institution alone every quarter financing non-white and female businesses. I want you to think about that for a minute. This has been going on for a long time. This didn't just start. What happens to businesses run by white men and businesses that could be run by anyone, but who have a lot of white males in the employ and are therefore are not quite anti-white enough to get the hundreds of millions of investment dollars. What happens to those businesses? They go out of business. They can't compete. It doesn't matter. You can take these businesses chock full of females, and they love to look at the data here and then make lies. I went through this, and I'll share some of it with you. We'll look at a video too of theirs. But they'll make these lies about, institutions with more female employment are more profitable than the ones without, except that part of that is the hundreds of millions of dollars that you pump into these entities to keep them going. You leave that little bit out. That as long as you're pumping hundreds of millions of dollars into these female and non-white run entities, well, they'll just keep chugging along, even if they're corpse-like, even if the products and services and the rest are garbage compared to the other businesses. Product, services, data, and insights, philanthropic efforts to help promote equity and thought leadership. Thought leadership. What are you confused? In other words, you have to have the anti-white thoughts. Thought leadership in workplace diversity, equity, and inclusion. So DIE, D-I-E, diversity, inclusion, and equity. Real quick, just check this. Here's their mission. You ever looked up their mission? Investment in underserved, I keep saying like undeserved because it's appropriate, communities. We are committed to advancing economic outcomes in underserved communities through our products, services, spending, business practices, and thought leadership. Again, their mission: advance equity through giving. Advance equity through giving. So a white guy like me wants to start, no, impossible. Impossible. Advance equity through giving. We will leverage our philanthropic efforts, leverage their philanthropic efforts to help promote equity and inclusion for underrepresented, another euphemism for non-white groups, a meme pathogen for non-whites, underrepresented groups, and do our part to help eradicate systemic bias. They are the creators of systemic bias. So what is it that they are eradicating? White males. That's what they are eradicating. You look, it's black and white. That's what they're targeting in business, getting rid of white males. The systemic bias and underrepresented. Oh, we're already past females at 50% now. How can they be underrepresented? Because it's the anti-white narrative. In the anti-white narrative, every time a woman tries to start a business or tries to get ahead in business or climb the ladder, there's a bunch of white males who conspire against her. And they got a poster of like Chuck Norris on the wall, and they're conspiring to ruin her, that white woman. Except you can look throughout history. Like, I'm just remembering a story that I watched like a year ago about a woman who worked in, what was the business that she worked in? Oh boy. Was it envelopes? Might have been envelopes. And way back in the day. And women weren't allowed to be out, right? Except they were. They were out and working. Anti-whiteism is all a lie. All of these stories of women being so oppressed, you look back and you're like, wait a second. How could this be the first woman when women have been doing X, Y, or Z for 150 years? But I found that all the time throughout my education, without fail. So there's another example. Women, supposedly not allowed in the workforce a long time ago. And this woman, what was it? Was it envelopes? It was something like that. Some kind of, it was paper that was folded up, but it had to be done by hand. And so this woman, white woman, got the idea of how this could be mechanically done. And so, well, then wasn't it immediately stolen from her? Right? Wasn't the idea immediately stolen because anti-white narrative, right? That's how the world works, right? Except you. That's not how it worked. That's not how the Western world worked at all. So she reached out to a white guy who was an engineer, and she said, I've got an idea, and do you think you can make this? Do you think you could engineer it? And the white guy, wait, didn't he steal the idea? That's what the made-for-TV movie would have happened. No, actually, he said, that's a great idea. I think I'll try to engineer it for you so we can get you a patent, the white guy said. So then he went and engineered this thing, right? She had an idea. A white guy, she asked a white guy to help, and he helped her. He engineered it. He said, okay, this is, I can put it together, and this is how it works. And they then submitted the blueprints. But guess what? The blueprints were stolen by some criminal who then submitted his own design before this woman and the engineer that she had hired or asked to help her. And so then you're like, whoa, look, this white criminal, it was the white males keeping her down. They stole it from her. Except that it went to court, and the white judge, the all-male, found that she was the one. And I thought women had no rights. I thought women, they were always just oppressed and kept down, and they were just so abused, and everything was so horrible for them. That's true in the anti-white narrative. In the real world, not a jot of it is true. And they awarded that woman the patent, and she got filthy rich because of it. Well, you mean the white males in business didn't buy from her? They didn't buy. They didn't just say, what a woman? Pfft, we're not going to do that. Advance equity through giving. Promote workplace diversity. What does diversity mean? A mean pathogen means fewer white people or no white people. For every diversity hire, there's a diversity fire, and it can only morally and legally be a white male. We strive to lead the way in attracting, developing, and retaining individuals with diverse, meaning no white males, backgrounds, and perspectives, and to drive a culture of inclusion, which is exclusion for white males, for all colleagues. But, you know, our brothers and sisters out there in the conservative ranks and libertarian ranks, and then the big egghead thinkers, they're going to say, oh, let's abstractionize the whole thing. It really doesn't matter that they're hurting white people. That doesn't matter. In fact, I can't, every time I say white people, I feel a shock to my spine. It's painful. And so we're just going to say it's wrong to make these decisions based on race. And then we'll talk about cases where they have discriminated against Asians, the very few cases. We'll be happy to mention the Asian race. You. I hope the cannibals use the severed legs like baseball bats on your fucking heads. All right? I'm a little salty. This is what's happening. I could have been anything I wanted in the world if there wasn't this entire anti-whiteism set against me as a white male. Germanic, light-featured, white male. Excels, sets records all over the place, everything done to ruin me. I only get one life. Somebody's going to suffer. Somebody's getting in my way of getting back at these anti-whites. I'm going to make sure they suffer.